The VAB, we wanted to understand because, you can say anecdotally, oh, this is a huge category. So we did the numbers, and what we found out, 2018 full year numbers, $14.8 billion. So it's an enormous category. Then we went back to 2002. We wanted to do a trend line, and you expect that maybe you're going to see some ups and downs. It was a $14.1 billion category. And so what we've seen is over 16 years in surviving the undulations of economies and all sorts of different things like this has been a steady state, $14 billion category in a media environment, in a video ecosystem that continues to change and evolve. And yet this has been plug and play with respect to the importance. So in short, and granted, you haven't been there in your position since 2002, but since you started working in this practice, what do you think has evolved? Because if the spend hasn't evolved, certainly the practice has evolved with all the data sets and the different things. So please, Skylar, if you want to start, what's evolved from when you first got attracted and into this business in TuneIn?
Yeah, I think that there's been so much innovation in terms of MarTech that have really enabled us to evolve the way we're planning, buying, measuring our media. So there's been a lot of advancements in closed loop cross-platform TuneIn attribution, and then concurrently a lot of smart TV, ACR, one-to-one TV data sets that have become available to us. So not only now can we actually get feedback on a more granular tactic level basis, but now we can actually action on those things.
And in terms of not only having the data, but have those data sets also evolved since you've begun using them?
Oh, absolutely. I think when those solutions first came to market, we were seeing a lot of modeling, just a lot of opaqueness in terms of how the data sets were being built and what are the attributes that are being included, like how frequently they're being refreshed and things like that. And as the marketplace has evolved, and as I think we've continued to push our partners to increase that transparency so that we're actually able to just buy the audiences that are most meaningful for us, that's been a major change I think I've seen over the years.
Okay, so Jen?
I was going to say, I think if you look at the industry and kind of how people consume video content, those things had to change because we're shifting from a world where everyone had cable TV and watched live to a world where people are time shifting or they're streaming or they're choosing their platforms. So the audience that we're trying to reach when driving linear tune-in has shifted a lot because even though the industry is still extremely profitable, where the profit is coming from also hasn't shifted. So from our perspective, kind of driving a live linear tune-in and generating the ad revenue against that is currently still the most profitable thing we can do to kind of drive revenue with our business.
I'm going to actually ask you to dial the clocks back just a bit in that I've always been impressed when I talk to practitioners about the specialtiness, the fact that this is a true specialty. This is a real cottage industry inside of a dynamic industry. It's kind of an ultra-dynamic corner of the industry. What attracted you to this part of the marketing ecosystem and the advertising ecosystem? I'm going to ask both of you, take us through your path as to how you settled where you are and why you like it so much. How'd you get here?
I've worked across a lot of different client verticals and objectives, and I think that what really appealed to me about TuneIn marketing specifically was the confluence of both the creative aspects of the fun part of the job, as well as kind of the more data-driven analytics aspect of it to really understand the drivers of TuneIn. So I really liked that aspect of it.
And for Jen?
I came up in theater marketing, so getting people to go see Broadway shows, which I love, I'm very passionate about, but the scale was small. You could only get somebody to do that if they were here in New York and available to go. So what I loved about television was the national scale and the ability to continue supporting content just in a bigger way.
Talk to me a little about, in detail, some of the data that you get to see that maybe an average, practitioner at, it could be a great multinational conglomerate agency that they don't get to sift through. And what are some of the data stacks that you get to see and you get to manipulate?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that's been really great working and closely partnering with A&E is that they've allowed us to be really hands-on within their DMP. So we're hands-on in their platform, building our own audience segments, doing our own kind of overlap reports and things like that. So not a lot of, from what I'm hearing, that's pretty rare that.
Uh-oh, should we kick you out?
Yeah.
That a brand is sharing access with their agency partners. So I think that's been really great and a good opportunity for us.
Yep. Now, away from tech and things like that, and thinking more about your peers, why is Horizon so good at this particular practice? Because it's been a while that it's been one of the market leaders in this practice. From a day in, day out perspective, from the experience of working,
I'm
why
going
are
to
they
start
so good?
as the client. I'm gonna go for
That's
this.
better. You're right.
I think one of the reasons Horizon has been so good at this is that they're willing to change and try things. They're not plug and play. They're not kind of continuing the same way we used to as things are changing. They're really at the forefront of trying and learning new stuff.
Yeah, and I would echo that. Actually, think that I've been on this business for a really long time, 7+ years on the AN accounts specifically, and it's every day still a challenge because you guys are always willing to be good partners in terms of testing things and learning from the things that don't work instead of looking at those things as failures. That we're really trying to always just evolve, and that was something we learned from, and now we'll try this.
Bring us in a little closer. What might be one of the things that that is unique about your partnership that you decided to test? What did you create together where you sat there and said, I wonder if we would try to do X? You don't have to name names and specifics, but get us a little closer to what you mean by testing things, and what are some of the things?
I mean, I think when I first came 7 years ago to Horizon to work on the A&E business, that we were still very much doing things the way traditional TuneIn marketers were. There was a high emphasis on high impact, awareness. We were buying mastheads, things like that. And that was, at that point, we were doing very limited data targeting. There was some retargeting that we were doing, but really was not a core emphasis of ours. And I think that it was a little bit scary for them initially when we were trying to kind of increase the focus on how much audience targeting that we were doing, and that we really had to work together to kind of prove those incremental milestones so that we could get to a place where we were, now that that's a cornerstone of our media buys.
So what's table stakes, Jen? What do you need to bring to the party in terms of what the data is that you're going to partner with Horizon? So what makes Jen a good client in terms of what she can give you in terms of insights and data and that type of thing? You can each, from your perspective, Jen, what do you think you're really on the hook for that's going to make the magic happen?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're responsible for is giving Horizon as much information and transparency as they need to do their job. And I also think building up our database and making it as strong as it can be. Look, we obviously collect a lot of information about people engaging with us from a digital perspective, but it's also important to collect as many linear viewers as possible. So what can we do from a company perspective to entice our linear viewers to share their data with us? And we do that with things like sweepstakes.
Right. And what from your perspective, Skylar, what makes A&E a good partner from a data match perspective that they're a little better than your average client might be able to provide you with?
I think that they're very thoughtful about the actual source of the data, where it's coming from, and how that translates to TuneIn, and kind of keeping in mind that our ultimate focus is to drive ratings. So we've moved away from some of these kind of like broad entertainment enthusiast type of targets to really more focused on, it's a viewership-based audience segment.
Right. Now, confession, one of the staple things that is watched as I'm traveling all over the 5-state region with my 12-year-old hockey-playing daughter is she will very often say, is live PD on? All right, and then once you start looking, you can't stop. I'm sorry. You can have advanced degrees from Ivy League institutions. It doesn't matter. You can't stop looking. Is there, and there's a question here, by the way, is there real differences when you're talking about driving tune into things like reality-based programs versus drama and things like that? What can you share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about there's really more of a storytelling element that is required for some of the scripted series. So in those instances, we're focused more from a media perspective on how do we tell this story, whereas we're buying more non-skippable pre-roll or longer form video content. Versus on reality, you may not necessarily need the full story to understand what's going on or follow along, and so our strategies can be a little bit different there.
Okay. And let me ask a question about almost like the optimization process, right? You've got clear goals about what you're trying to do in terms of drive an audience. It's measured, you've either attained or not. How quickly can you read and react? How quickly, particularly when you're talking about something like, for example, for a reality show that is, that's evergreen, that you may run multiple days a week. How quickly can you read and react? What can you do?
I think, unfortunately, not as fast as we'd like. I think the biggest challenge about TuneIn marketing is the show has to premiere, and then it's premiered, and then you have to get the data, and it either comes back the next week or it doesn't, and it is hard kind of getting the data and turning it around fast enough to make actionable insights immediately. I think is some place where the business needs some work.
Yeah, I think like it depends. So for some of our digital engagement metrics, and digital as a platform is going to be more nimble in terms of being able to optimize than our TV buys, but I think what Jen's referring to specifically is some of our attribution measurement studies. We've had some challenges around getting timely feedback in those instances.
Okay. Now take me to, let's do sort of a day in the life of trying to drive TuneIn for X, Y, or Z property. From starting, okay, I've got a blank piece of paper. What are the 1-2 most important things I need to do first, and that if I don't do right, it's not going to go right?
Yeah, I think identify the target audience. If you don't get that right, it doesn't matter what else you do, your campaign's going to fail. You've reached people, but they're the wrong people, and they're not going to tune in.
And I'd say, to add to that, it's really important to know what each tactic on your media plan is intended to do, and then measure success accordingly. I think that you can't. There's so much more data now available in terms of performance metrics for the closed loop attribution that it's really easy, I think, to get into a digital mindset where you're just looking at conversion rate instead of also looking at what's the total volume of tune-ins that you're driving, or what are the relative efficiencies. And so you can't look at any one of those metrics in isolation. They need to be considered together. And I think you have to make sure that you're looking at the right metrics for the specific tactic that it aligns to.
Yeah. And when you talk about, you say the first thing is building the right target audience. That's got to be well past age, sex, demographic. I mean,
oh, yeah.
So take me through what that would typically look like. What do you know about that?
So for us, it's all about TV affinity of live TV viewers. So we want to reach people that we know watch live TV, and they have they're more likely to like our show. And I think one of the challenges we've had internally is being realistic around what that target is versus being aspirational. And I think if you want to drive actual tune-in, you need to be realistic about what you're selling and who's going to be interested.
So sometimes you have to be the voice of sanity and the sanity police over people who think that they're going to be able to achieve X.
Everyone wants to be Game of Thrones. All content isn't Game of Thrones.
Got it. All right, I'm going to do one last piece that I'm going to ask both of you to respond to. You get a wish granted today. You get to change anything about the measurement ecosystem, about the data ecosystem, specifically to what you're trying to achieve. And I'm going to ask you each, change 2 things that would greatly improve what you're able to do. Pull the lever. What do you want to change?
Okay, I want to read people's mind and know ahead of time if they're actually going to tune in. And the second thing I want is also challenging. I want direct access, one-to-one data on live TV viewers and all of their TV affinity, so that we can just go after the right people and just follow them around.
Okay. All right. No, those are taken, but you have two fresh ones. Aren't you glad you went first?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Skylar.
Yeah, I think we would love to see more collaboration in terms of the walled gardens, where that's still a persistent blind spot for us, even though there's been a lot of movement in the marketplace in terms of increasing measurement. And I think when we first came to market with some of our TuneIn studies, people didn't want to accept the pixels, and those days are gone now, and so there's wider acceptance, but still we're running into the walled gardens, still are a barrier for us, and
which means we're siloed. Even if the
Exactly.
walled gardens let us in, which they do now, it's in their ecosystem,
Exactly.
not compared to the other tactics. We expect that media drives a growth. It's just relative to other tactics.
So you want the same view that you have of live TV audience, instantaneous, follow them around everywhere. You want also, with respect to those two other big walled gardens as well.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to wish for, I think. I think we'll end there. And I really thank you, Skylar, and thank you, Jen. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.